We're so glad that you're joining us for this evening's program, Haunted Battleship Part 2, with USS Battleship North Carolina's own Kim Sencox, joined by Battleship North Carolina volunteers Cecil Ard, Fred and Gary Hall, Nick Braden, and Mike Resser. My name is Stacy, and I handle adult education over at the museum. So whenever you join us for one of these History and Highballs programs, you and I will virtually get to spend the evening together listening to stories about incredible North Carolina places and people and what makes our state so special. Tonight's program is just one of many exciting digital offerings available through MOH. So if you'd like to learn more about our History at Home initiative, we invite you to head over to the museum's website at www.ncmuseumofhistory.org. We would like to take this opportunity to thank our North Carolina Museum of History Associates and Foundation for making this evening's event possible. Our associates and foundation provide crucial funding and support, which in addition to many other things, helps to make events like this evening's event happen. If you'd like to learn more about becoming an associates member, head over to their website at www.ncmoha.com. We would also like to thank those of you who graciously donated funds towards this evening's program. We try to keep these programs free to attend, but there are costs associated with keeping these series going, and we're so appreciative of your continued support of the museum and its programming. If you haven't already used the link in your Eventbrite email to check out the tutorial for this evening's specially themed cocktail, the Cure Wine Cocktail, with special guest bartender Mike Beaver of Mingle Bars, we invite you to head over to the museum's YouTube channel and check it out. It is delicious. A few quick housekeeping items for this evening. We ask that you please keep your mics muted throughout the entirety of the program, and that if you have any questions for our speakers, to please type them into the chat function located at the bottom center of your screen. At the end of tonight's program, fellow MOH educator Nancy Pennington will ask the speakers as many of your questions as time allows. So it is my speakers, Kim Sencox, who is the Museum Services Director for Battleship North Carolina. Kim grew up in Gastonia and visited the USS North Carolina at age 10, dressed in a special patriotic dress that she picked out just for the occasion. Who knew that she would arrive back at the ship in March of 1990 to begin a long and satisfying career in the ship's museum? She now fills her days providing education programs and shipboard interpretation for adults and children, along with former crew members and their families. She is joined this evening by longtime Battleship North Carolina volunteers Fred and Gary Hall, Mike Resser, Cecil Ard, and Nick Braden, all of whom are going to be sharing their paranormal experiences aboard the USS Battleship North Carolina. So Fred and Gary, I believe that y'all are going to lead us off. I'm going to turn it over to you. Welcome.
Okay, thank you, Stacy, for introducing us. And we're here actually in the aft steering compartment down here. Now, over to my left is my brother, and that's Fred Hall, and of course my name is Gary Hall. So we're known out through the volunteers as the Hall brothers. So if any trouble start, you know, we get blamed for it. So, you know, it's a common thing that we do around here. So I'm gonna turn it over to Freddie because this story, we were actually down here working, and it actually happened more to him than it did me, but I was in the area right here in this same area. So I'm gonna turn it over to Fred.
Yes, sir. Well, first of all, I want to say this is the exterior, and we walk in here about 14 feet. What it is, I've been coming down here. So what happened was,
Me neither.
Hold it, Freddie's on mute. Unmute Freddie.
Unmute Freddie. Well, can you hear him through me?
No.
Okay.
there you go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So what it was is we were cleaning these rams right here, and we were polishing. And like I said, I've been coming down here on some weekends by myself doing some work on here. On a Friday afternoon back in February of 2017, it was around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and Gary was on this ram over here, and he was doing some polishing. And I was going into the control room through this hatch right here, and as I was walking through, I heard something behind me, and it was a voice. And the voice got there and says, "I'm tired." And brothers being brothers, I was going to give him a hard time, you know, what do you mean you're tired and everything. And he got up there, and I said, what did you say? He says, what do you mean? I haven't said nothing. I said, yes, you did. You got there and said, I'm tired. He got up there and he said, no, I didn't. Well, I know what I heard. And what it was, it's like there's about 3 feet behind me when I heard that voice. And there's no doubt what I heard. And what it was before then, before I heard that voice, we were talking down here and saying it was getting cold. And it got colder and colder. Like I said, it was like toward the end of February, a little after 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And yes, it was getting cold. We even put our jackets on. And then when we got there, like I said, when I went through that hatch right here, that's when I heard that voice. And so I just played it off for a little bit like that, but I know what I heard. And up top, you know, above us, we can usually hear people coming down the steps or anything like that. There was nobody else except just me and him. There's no doubt in my mind. And like I said, it was just a minute or two. It seemed like it warmed back up after that. But I didn't realize until later on, I talked to another volunteer in here, and he gave us his experience down in here. And we have gone and helped out with paranormal groups down here, and they have their little equipment, and they do pick up action down here. So it is what it is, and I just don't know what else to say on that, but we did have something going on down here. Didn't realize it until we sit there and thought about it on the way back home. And like I said, it got cold, and then it got warm after that. So that's pretty much what happened down here.
Hey, Freddie. Freddie.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, Stacy, that's all here from Dr. Mapster, and we send it back to you.
Guys, I believe the next story is from Mike, if he is able to join us. It seems he might be having connectivity issues. Are you there, Mike?
Can you hear? I'm here. I'm hooked up. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yep, you're
Okay.
good to go.
I'm Mike Resser. I'm with the USS North Carolina Living History Crew. I've been coming to the ship for 22 years to do historic programs, and I interpret the executive officer's office, which is on the main deck forward, port side, left side, the superstructure. It is the personnel administration office. I've encountered a spectral figure, sometimes a shadow, sometimes a full body apparition. I've seen it 4 times. It's usually observed walking forward or moving forward on the deck along the bulkhead, the wall where the office is, and the gun turret that is just outside the office. One time I was coming back from dinner. I was walking toward the office. It was about 9 o'clock in the evening, and I saw a person step through the hatchway into the superstructure where the office is. And I thought, oh, that's one of my buddies. I went. I was about 3 seconds behind. I walked in. There was nobody there. I looked at the
camera around
locked.
and show them space down there.
I'm getting some cross.
Oh, boy.
Mike, can you hear us?
Still with you?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay. I don't know if you heard, I saw at one time a almost full body apparition step through the hatch. When I got to the passageway, it was not there. In the evening, sometimes when I get there early on a Wednesday or Thursday, I like to sit on the deck and just look at the sights across the river. And I've seen the shadow coming forward and then disappear into the office. The last time, about 2 years ago, I saw it. I just called out, "Hey, shipmate, how are you?" Didn't get any response. Sometimes in paranormal phenomenon, the entities actually don't acknowledge you. They're not even aware you're there. One of the, also with relation to the executive officer's office, one of the night watchman told me one night he was chaperoning a party in the wardroom, and a woman came up and asked him if there were any other people from the battleship on board. He said, "No, I'm the only one." And when he asked why, he said, "Well, I just came by that office and there was a man in there standing up reading papers, and he was in a uniform." He told me he walked back, looked in the portholes, nobody in there, walked around, the door was locked, and there was nobody there. But she said she claimed to have seen a sailor in there in uniform, whether it was khaki, an officer, a chief, or dungarees, a sailor. He wasn't sure, but she did see him. And that's what's happening in the executive officer's office. I never felt threatened or disturbed by them. Maybe they see me in uniform and just figure I'm another one of the sailors. That's it for me.
That's so incredible. Thank you, Mike. Cecil, I think you're up next.
Okay, cool. So I get to name drop a couple names because I was lucky to hang out with Lindsay Center, Dustin Pearl, and Grant Wilson one night. Lindsay came in a couple years, about 3 years ago, and did a seminar with 60 people of how to hunt ghosts. And then 12 people paid a VIP fee. And at the end of the night, after everybody went home about 1 a.m., Dustin and Grant and Lindsay came down below with them and pretty much taught them personally how to hunt. And it's the only time I've ever actually physically seen anything. Let me flip my camera around. Cooperate. There we go. So we're back aft in mess deck 7 and 8. It's like our little strip mall for the ship. And this is the post office. And I'm coming back up through here, and Grant and a young lady are standing back in the corner where you see the little doorway and light back there. And that is our barber shop. So if you look right down at the top of these steps here, you can see a little reflective triangle. It was dark back here except for a couple of little lights in the barber shop. So as I come up about right here, I saw a form, it was a perfect silhouette, side form of a person go down the ladder. Can you hear me? Grant's standing right back here, sort of in the corner with the young lady, and he looks at me and goes, "Hey, did you see that?" I said, "Yeah, somebody went down the ladder." He said, "No, man, we're the only two back here." So I come back over here and look down, and about that time down in aft steering down here where Fred and Gary were a while ago, they start yelling they got activity down there. So that was pretty much the only time I've ever physically seen anything. Everything else has been auditory or sensory. That's pretty much it for that one.
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. Fred and Gary, I think you guys are up again.
Okay, hang on just a second. A little technical difficulty going on here.
Okay.
Can y'all hear me now?
We can barely hear you.
Here, Fred. Turn toward me. Here we go. Y'all can hear me now?
Yes, that's great.
Hello?
We can hear you.
You can hear me? Okay. Sound check right now. On the passageway. So actually, we're starting to get into the sick bay area. So this is what I need in that. We got the car was shut in on the safe. And me and my wife started coming through here, and actually we're walking through.
Wait, we can't hear you. Wait, Fred, Gary, we can't hear you.
I can't hear you. You hear me now?
Yes.
We can hear
Okay,
you.
that's the blowers running. That's what's causing all the air.
Okay.
Off noise. So actually, me and my wife was going through that passageway where I was just in. And when I was walking by this passageway right here, coming in the sick bay area, and actually I heard the door slam shut. And
We can't hear you. We can't hear you. You've got to hold the phone or something. We can't hear.
Okay. Let's try this. All right, then. Let me go to a quieter place here.
Okay. Thank you.
I hope everybody doesn't get seasick watching.
Oh, I hear something here on the phone. Okay, hang on just a second. I apologize for this, y'all.
That's okay.
Okay, can you hear me now?
That's much better. Yes.
Much better. Okay, I apologize. It's kind of loud in there back that way.
Okay, just stop moving. You could just.
Yeah, I'm
Maybe.
gonna stop moving right here. So
Okay.
actually, down this passageway, that's where I was just at. So there is some doors down in there for a bit like the dispensary and so on. Also, there is also the the surgical dressing room. So what happened, me and my wife was coming through down that passageway, and when we came through there, I heard a door slam. And I looked to my immediate left, and look, there was no one there. I immediately came down, and now with the passageway you're looking through here, there was nobody through this passageway either. All the doors are locked and shut in this passageway. To my immediate left right here would be the surgical room right here, the operating room. So when I looked, I checked the door and everything, the door was tight, and it was not loose or anything of that nature. Even with the blowers running, the doors will not move back and forth or anything of that nature. So that's kind of unexplainable what happened there. Now, another instance when the paranormal groups come in, and we're assisting with the paranormal groups, that we're in the surgical dressing room. And a lot of people, they have quite a bit of activity in there. So when they have the activities in there and stuff like that, some of the people ask questions like, do you feel like the ship is moving? Like it's swaying back and forth, like it's underway. Also, they get a strong smell of alcohol, and also they get a burning smell on top of that. Okay, so that's some of the stuff that goes on in here in the sick bay area. Also, when we come through here, this area, we also get a feeling that, you know, you need to be really respectful type feeling, and whatever you need to get it done and move on. So that's what we get the feeling in here, and that's how we treat it, to be honest with you. So that's what I have here. I do apologize for the noise and everything that's going on and couldn't hear, but you know, this is the first time we're doing this, so we're learning as we go. And
The thing to note
Stacey,
about
back
that,
to you now.
oh, sorry. The thing to know about that burning smell is one of the deaths that happened on the ship. We had a burn victim from the carrier Ticonderoga. So he came to the ship and he died in the night. So that's I would think, the tie-in with the burn smell. And obviously there's alcohol there because, you know, but being medical.
Okay.
But paranormal groups do talk about that, the things they seem to experience in the sick bay.
Yes, and if you guys remember from last week, Nelson Noss from the Ghost Guild told us about an interesting experience that he had in sick bay as well, if you guys joined us this week. All right, Nick, I think you are up next.
Can you hear me fine now?
Yes.
Okay. So right in front of me, which I'll turn the camera around, is a down ladder that leads to
We'll get it figured
the
out.
machine shop. It's a capital ship. Only the capital ships had machine shops. Let's follow me as I walk to the starboard side of the ship, go through this fire exit. Back in 2017, I was the lead in a cleaning crew that we had on the battleship North Carolina. We still do, for that matter. So this is the first compartment outside of the machine shop. I came to clean early one Friday morning, and I started on this area. It was kind of dirty. We were expecting a lot of people in the afternoon. So this was my first order of business, get this cleaned up so that people don't see cobwebs and little dusty things on the floor. As I go aft, the minute, and I mean the instant, I stepped foot into this other compartment here, everything went haywire on me. What little hair I had on my head stood up, my arms were aching. I just had no explanation for it until I lifted my head. And there, at that bunk right there, I saw a sailor, a complete full apparition. He had his light blue dress shirt on, his work shirt, pardon me, and he had his dark blue trousers. I began processing what I was seeing, and it really didn't register. What registered when he jumped off that rack, which was the highest one at that point, I heard his feet hit the floor. Take a listen. If you heard that, that's what I heard. And he started walking towards me. I started backing up. He continued for 3 steps, and when he got to this doorway, that's when he disappeared. Me, on the other hand, pardon me, that's where I wound up, on my bum for 15 minutes trying to understand what I just saw. I was kind of a believer. I hear all the guys' stories on board, but it's really quite another thing when you experience it yourself. Your whole body goes haywire. It just, the electrical energy, whatever it is, my body just went haywire. The following week, we're cleaning. I had some guys on the port side. I'm still over on the starboard side. Here again is the door to the machine shop. And I'm standing literally right here, watching around the corner, waiting for the guys to come through from the port side so we could tackle this side again. And it's hard to talk about. While I'm standing here, and you can hear literally nothing right now. There's no blower above me, no forced air coming from anywhere. Somebody blew on the back of my neck and ear. They blew so hard, I ran through this door to get to safety on the other side, on the port side. Again, I was on this ship for maybe 2.5 years. And to have these things happen in successive weeks just blew my mind and frankly scared the heck out of me, to be honest with you. I don't know if it was the reason I left the battleship or not, but it was probably up there. I'm not a scaredy person, but when you have no explanation for what you just saw, it kind of messes with your head. And in the subsequent weeks after that, I wouldn't go into that compartment by myself anymore. I made sure I had somebody with me, and not to comfort me, but just to ensure really that nothing would happen again. As I'm sitting here talking with you guys right now, all the hair in my body is again waking up. But from down here on the third deck in the machine shop and the starboard hallway leading to the barbette to number 2 turret, I'm gonna turn it back to Stacy, and that's my story for you guys. Have a good night.
Wow, that is so incredible. I cannot even imagine. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Oh, you're very welcome, Stacy. My pleasure.
Next, Cecil, we're going to go back to you, I believe. Oh, let's see. He's muted. Just 1 second. Let's see. Oh, Cecil, we can't hear you. You're muted.
I didn't do that. Must be somebody else's fault.
There you go.
Okay.
We can hear you now.
So where I am is called Confusion Junction for 101s. Sick bay is right here, doorway. There's a passageway here. This was where they assembled for sick bay. This is the doorway into the officer's galley. There's a doorway back forward. Hello, Nick. I'm sorry, that's aft. And then down in here's the machine shop. So if you notice something, I'm right in the middle of where everybody else was. Nick was just down by the machine shop. Fred and Gary were over in sick bay. So a few years ago, they were doing restorations in the wardroom, which is directly above me. And this passageway, about 3 o'clock one morning, I was in the wardroom. They hadn't put any doors in yet. So I'm going down to Marines, and I hear somebody run down this passageway. And they get to the end of this passageway, you have a ladder that goes up to main deck. It's very, very distinct sound when hard-soled shoes hit these ladders. I saw sold shoes, so I can't make the sound. But it came down this passageway, up this ladder, and out on the main deck right there. Where I was, the doors are locked, so I can't get back in. They're up now. But where I was the brown door you see there. And I asked Night Watch the next day, and he's like, oh yeah, 3-4 times a year, we'll go turn the lights off, and we'll come up to the top of that ladder, and we'll hear somebody coming down the passageway, and you turn around with your flashlight like, sorry, I turned the lights on and locked you in. Nobody there. They'll come up the ladder, you just kind of step out the way, it goes past you, and it's gone. So that is pretty much it for that one.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That gives me goosebumps just listening. All right, Fred and Gary, I think you guys are up next.
Okay, Stacy, where we located at now, we're in the wardroom pantry, so that's next adjacent to the wardroom. So what happened in here was that me and Freddie was sitting here working one day. It was on a Friday afternoon, of course, and we were actually polishing some stainless steel table. Now this area is more of a storage area, prepping area for the wardroom area, and right here is the table that I was actually working on that day. So I was actually polishing this table up, and Freddie was in the next room adjacent to me where it has a sink and so on. So what we were doing is we're just working and polishing it. You know, it takes a lot of work and a lot of time to do it. But and notice it was getting a little cooler in here, which, you know, we don't think nothing about it. And I had my drop cord over to the very back of the stainless steel table and down away from my leg and everything, so I wouldn't trip over anything. Well, as I was polishing everything, all of a sudden, I feel like something just like a back of a hand hit the calf of my leg and brushed it real lightly. And at first I didn't think of anything, and I looked down and said, well, maybe it's the cord. And I looked over and the cord was still where it was at, where I placed it at. So there was no way for anything to touch me. I mean, all this stuff that you see here was not here. So this was a clean, clear area right here. So where Freddie was, I'm gonna kind of pan this real slowly, and I'm gonna go back over where Freddie was at. So if you notice where Freddie's standing in the doorway right there, I'm gonna come all the way back here. And actually, he was over here at this thing, working on this thing. So, and he was polishing. So, of course, we had everything running here. And it was loud, so I had to kind of, I went over and stopped him. And I said, hey, look, man, I think one of your friends over here is starting to mess around with me a little bit. He said, and he turned around and he says, did it feel like something brushed you on your leg? And right there, that was, you know, kind of eerie feeling right there. But, of course, us being us, we went ahead and went back to work. But it was in the back of our minds the whole time. But we didn't get that feeling like you need to get out or anything like that nature. It was just like, you know, you come over here and something just brushed you up, man, and that's it. But it did get a little bit warmer after that. And it was pretty much almost mid-morning when that happened. And like I said, it was on a Friday afternoon when this happened to us. There was also another incident that happened to us, and this was not too terribly long ago. And we actually come in here and it was going to be a paranormal investigation that was going to happen that evening. So we were prepping and everything, and we're actually down here in the wardroom area, and we were walking by, we're inside the wardroom, and down this passageway right here to the end, we heard a woman's voice. Now we couldn't make out what the woman's voice said, but you could hear something like, you know, like a talking type voice, like something was talking to you, but it was so far away you couldn't really hear it. Now, the thing about this area is in here, there's nobody here during that time. And of course, the ship is dark when it goes dark. And also that it just gives you a feeling, why would you hear a woman's voice on the ship? Well, we asked one of the paranormals about that when they were talking about it. So why would be a woman's voice on board ship? They said it's not necessarily being a sailor on board, it's somebody maybe connected to the ship somehow, some way. So, you know, that kind of surprises us a little bit, but then again, it don't surprise us, you know. It just gives you another way of thinking things of what's going on, what might be attached to the ship in that aspect of it. So,
But they used to entertain. I mean, during the war, now and then, especially when they were in America, the officers could have their wives there. And
right.
that
And
passageway is where the women's room was. That's near where the ladies' room was.
Okay.
Just saying.
Now, they also reported that down in the bakery too, where they heard a woman's voice down in that area too. And that was reported by some of the paranormal groups too, on top of that. I think whenever the ship was in port, like it was like back in New York in the harbor there, that they actually had like a family day, and maybe the family could come on board. There was, that might be connected that way. It just don't, you know.
Yeah, there were times when they had women.
Connections are on this. Yeah, but it, like I said, it kind of gives you a feeling that, you know, it's not just the sailors on board or the crew on board, but also other folks that are on board on top of that, that's connected that way. So that's about all we have right here in this particular area right here on that.
That is incredible. Oh my gosh. I just can't even imagine, you know, being you guys and experiencing all these different experiences. You are brave souls to get back on that ship.
it's never anything that feels like it's going to rip out your heart or your soul. It's always, gee, that's odd, and you're going about your business. I mean, it's not a poltergeist type thing, whatever. I'm probably using the wrong word because I'm not a professional, but it's never anything. Once in a while, you'll get a feeling that something doesn't want you where you are and you've got to leave, but you go somewhere else and you're fine, and then you come back later and you're good to go. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in and interrupt, but
No, that's fine. That's just
too late now. I can't take it back.
Cecil, did you have another story for us, or are we going on to Kim?
Is it?
Oh, did you say my name?
Yeah, I said, did Cecil have another story for us, or are we moving
Well,
on?
I have one.
Oh, yes, he does.
I have one that I have permission. It's another volunteer story, and it's one of the coolest ones that I've heard. And I'm glad it didn't happen to me, but it's cool it happened to him, and I could tell it. So I'm in the machine shop again, and I'll flip around in a minute and show you guys. But Doug Armstrong is a good friend and a really good guy, and he's a machinist by trade. He builds NASCAR engine parts. And so he came through one day and decided he wanted to come and do restorations in the machine shop, and he's been doing it for a while. He's a very serious guy, very no-nonsense type guy. He's a former Marine. So he comes down to the machine shop one night, and they're wanting to do some painting. So what they did, let me flip my camera around. What they did was, this is a layout table. So underneath this copper top is a cast iron table that's absolutely flat. When they do their machining, they can lay things out on. So they work on the top of this. Right up here is an exhaust vent. They wanted to paint, so they built this little hood out of a box. And it was a box, of course, with one side cut out, had a little peak top in it, and a hose that went up to the vent up here. Looked kind of like a little dollhouse, right? Sorry about the fingers. They get in the way sometimes. So we pretty much finished up and went to eat, and we'd finished painting. So he brought it around here, and these are a couple of lathes, 14, big 18, I think it is, lathe. So this is the tool crib. It's where they store the tools, and they would distribute them out through this little doorway. Well, when you swing it open, homemade bell up here, 40 millimeter shell with nuts. It's kind of cool. Took the hoodie and tossed it over here back where these tools are. So then we go to eat. We come back later that evening, and they're going home the next day. They usually come down late Friday evening, and we work through Saturday into Saturday night about midnight, and then we'll get back up Sunday and do some work Sunday morning, and then they'll leave about 2, 3 o'clock to go home. And so about a little after midnight, about 12:30 Saturday night, Sunday morning, he said, I'm going to go throw that little hood we made away. So he comes from the Marines, which is this ladder right here above me, comes around through this door, right into here, slid the tool crib open with a little ding-a-ling up there. He walks in, and the box is here. So he walks down here, and he said he reached down to grab it, and he heard this little girl sigh like she was disappointed, kind of like, and then she started laughing. And he said it went from a little girl, morphed to a woman, to an old woman seamlessly, basically took off through here. And he said, went basically through that lathe. There was no visual, it was just audio. And through that lathe and disappeared between the two lathes. So he comes back up top to the Marines, and he was acting weird. We're like, Doug, what's going on, man? He wouldn't say anything. So the first thing he said a little bit later, about an hour later, was, dude, I'm not crazy. Well, Doug, you are crazy, but what's going on? And he finally told us the story, man. That's probably one of the coolest ones I've ever heard of. And I asked him last year if he ever thought about it happening again. And he said, well, part of me says yes, and part of me says no. So.
Oh my goodness. Oh, all the chills bumps just listening to this story.
That's why Nelson loves us.
Yeah.
He's there. Somebody said hi a while ago. I think it was Nelson.
Kim, I think that we are finally ready for you.
Okay. Yeah, this is going to be a PowerPoint, so we will have all these moving. I mean, you guys moving so fast with your cameras are going to make us all seasick.
No, I'm going to go sit down somewhere where it's cool. Give me a second. I found the ventilation. I found the.
Okay. Hang on. Let me do this and hold everything if I can get. I got to fix my. Okay, there we go. So I'm Kim Sincox, and so you can have a little respite from the moving cameras. Use a PowerPoint to talk about a few of my unexplained experiences on the battleship. So I got here March of 1990, and in June of 1990, I meet Charles Odell, one of our crew members. We had gone down below where he showed me a part that he had specially engineered, and it ended up being an important thing as part of the torpedoing. And then when we finish, we're coming up and we come into this room. Now this room doesn't exist like this anymore, but you can see the panels. And we are the state's World War II memorial. These panels list the more than 10,000 men and women from our state that died in the war. They're listed by county. And we just happened to walk through here. I don't even think I told him what this was, but we're walking through this room, and suddenly he is just grabbing his chest, and he's heaving, and it's scaring me because I think he's having a heart attack. He's obviously in pain and whatever. It's just really scaring me. And I've just, been new to the ship, and I think this crew member is going to die on me. And he then proceeds to explain to me that he is sensing the souls of these people. And he was very serious. And that was my first experience with somebody, and the paranormal at the ship was him sensing the souls of these people. So that was my first experience. Then we were working on interpreting turret number 2. So in this down here, you can see this is a cutaway showing a great big 60-inch gun turret. And we were opening up these lower sections to tour, and we were figuring out how to interpret them. One of the things we did was decide to use these white plastic figures. They're made PVC. You can heat and bend them to show different things. And I was going to use them to show these actions where the men are going to move this projectile and where they're moving powder bags. And you can see where those spaces were on the tour route. And once upon a time, there were figures here. There was a man here working. There was a man here working, but they're not here. That's because one day I came to the ship not too long after we had opened these spaces, and this man right here was beheaded. This plastic material is probably 5/8 inch thick, and someone had ripped off the head. Now, I just assumed it was a bunch of high schoolers or Marines or somebody came down and were messing with us. I thought, well, we'll just have to replace it. And before we could replace it, maybe a couple weeks or whatever later, the second figure had his head taken off. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute, 2? And, well, then one of the crew members that was here, he had retired to Wilmington and gave tours all the time, and he remembered something. At this spot right here, this is a hatch, okay? And when the hatch is open, it looks like this. And this is how you move projectiles from the main deck above, and they're moved down through the hatch, all the way down inside the gun turret. Well, apparently and here we go. So here's a projectile, and it's held in place by this thing, a tong. So one Saturday, there were some men, 2 men, several levels down, and they were going to come up this ladder up to this level to eat breakfast. And the 2 friends debated who would go first. And so finally, Tommy Thompson is going to go first. So he's headed up this ladder. As he gets to the top, that tong that holds the projectiles was loose, and it hits him in the head, and he falls 3 levels to his death. And once Paul told me that story, we thought maybe this was Tommy getting our attention, letting us know just to remember him or something. And I decided not to replace those beheaded figures, and it never happened again. But we think that Tommy may still be with us. He was a newlywed. Another thing happened in Combat Information Center. So this is on the tour route. And so myself, Captain Ben Blee, who was an officer aboard the North Carolina, he was an intelligence officer, and Robert Service, who was an Army officer and a volunteer, we all go through the store into CIC. And Bob Service and I were interested to hear what Captain Blee would talk about. He was one that designed this space. Common Information Centers were a new concept. He had designed this space to be put in here in the summer of 1944 when the ship went to Bremerton, Washington for overhaul. So we finished talking and we're going to go leave. And we turn around and we're going to go out this door, which is when we came in. And I get to the door and it won't open. And I'm twisting and turning the knob and the door isn't opening. And I thought, oh, for crying out loud. Well, Bob Service and Captain Blee got right tickled because they figured that it had to do with the ghost on the ship. And Captain Blee was certainly familiar with that. And I thought, oh my gosh. And we honestly had to wait a while. We just had to wait a while. I mean, eventually we were able to get the door open and leave, but we really did have to wait a while. So I was like, I didn't know if we were going to have to try to bang on the door and call for help or what, but it was kind of crazy. But the two men got a big kick out of it. Now, on a similar note, my colleague, who's not with us now, but she was with someone from the Greensboro News and Record, and I remember the name, but I won't say right this minute, but a nice reporter from the News and Record, and she had brought with her a friend. The three of them were going in this particular door. You go through this door, and you enter the area that's close to where the men died from the torpedoing. You can see how it's unrestored back here. Well, it's also a space that has a number of artifacts in it. So Angela thought, well, while she had help, she would get the reporter and the other man they would all gather up artifacts and carry them back to where I'm sitting right now, which is in our collections area. So they gathered up the stuff on their arms and they get ready to leave. And they're going to go out this door. Now they've had to shut this door because if you go out this door, you're in the tour route. And they didn't want visitors back here, so they had shut the door. So when they get ready to leave and they're going to turn the wheel to leave, it won't let them out. They can't turn it at all. It's just like it's stuck. And finally, I don't remember if it was the man or the reporter said, well, maybe something doesn't want us to take out the artifacts. Maybe that's what's going on here. And so they carefully just laid all the artifacts down, just put them away. And lo and behold, boom, like butter, they could open the door. So that's what happened to them. Now, another thing that happened to the same colleague, bless her heart, this was a doozy. So you can see we have these original helmets that were left aboard ship. We have a lot of them, but the ones we have in storage are the ones that have markings on them. So that particular time, she was working on these in, excuse me, in the restroom that's here in the office. It was the chief petty officer's bathroom. At that time, there were 2 tables here. Each had helmets, and she had carefully stacked them. You can see these are not marked, so they're a little bit sloppy. But anyway, the ones are back here where they were marked and very neatly on the table. She would catalog 3 at a time. So she would catalog them. But she had noticed the really pretty one with that sort of tiger's head on it. And she was going to look at it. And she thought, no, I'll go ahead and finish the 3 I'm cataloging. And then I'll, look at the interesting one that's been painted on. So anyway, so she finished cataloging. So she gets up from the table. Oh, this is the pretty one she was interested in, but she thought, I'll wait, I'll finish cataloging. So she leaves, she goes out this door, through the next compartment. So she's going to this compartment towards the books over there. So she goes through this door with the books over to this area. And you can see where I put this so you could just sort of see she was putting helmets up here at that time. So then she puts them up and she comes back. And the 3 helmets that had been vertical like this were now horizontal like this. So they went from this sort of arrangement to this arrangement to make it easier for her to look at it. And when I saw, and she was down here by herself, and when I saw her moments later, she had gone up 2 floors up to the office area. She was plastered against a wall, shaking, just sort of babbling. I mean, she was freaked out, and I don't blame her. That's for something to move, and these helmets are heavy. And, I thought that was incredible. And then this is a story I often tell. This happened to me. And some people are skeptics, but I'm sort of like Nick and stuff. I know what happened. So this is my desk. This is where I'm sitting right now. And this was
Yeah.
where I often put my lunch. You can see, so this was on my lunch. And where I'm sitting, there is a bank of cabinets right here. This is so I can't look at my colleague. It's like keeping us separated here. So I'm just sitting here. Here's my lunch on the corner of my desk. And so I get up from my desk and I go around so I can talk to my colleague right here. This is where the curator's desk. So I was talking to her. Then I turn and look to the left over here, and there was a volunteer sitting here, and we're chatting. And all of a sudden I hear this really odd noise, some kind of weird noise coming from my desk. So I turn around, and you can see I can't see my desk from here. My desk is behind these cabinets. And so I go over, and my lunch, which was over here, is now upside down right there. There was my lunch upside down on the floor. And you can see it was quite a distance. And people said, well, could a rat have done it? No, Godzilla rat could not punt my lunch over there. And the ship is not rocking and rolling. If it had just sort of fallen off on the floor, but even then, what would have done that? I mean, it was just crazy. And then to top it off, it wasn't just any lunch, it was Asian stir fry. So I just decided they were having a bit of fun with me. They weren't keen on my eating Asian stir fry. And I have to tell you, and I was hungry. I told them, I said, listen, guys, I just taken one bite. I was really hungry. I have never left my food uncovered since. And now and then they have done things in Chiefs that I've actually said things like, no, you can't, don't do that anymore. So, but we have a number of stories, and there's all kinds, and we just love sharing them with you all. And also, people often think that it's people who passed away that died on the ship. And we know from some of the experiences that people have had that I don't tend to believe that anymore. But just so you know, we did have 10 people killed in action. Thurman Thompson, who I talked about, it was a terrible accident. And there was the gentleman who died, there was the one that died from the burning he was injured aboard the Ticonderoga, died during the night. And we do have another person who was working, the aircraft has a gun, and he went up to it, and nobody had they didn't secure the firing mechanism. And so when he went to turn the propeller, the gun went off and shot him right in the head. So he died, and we had some people die in accidents as well. But as we say, we've had women and all kinds of stuff on the ship. So you just never know about when the unexplained could happen to you on the battleship. Just saying.
Oh, she got off creeping and damaged too.
Really?
Yeah, that's who that is.
I don't know if anybody has any questions or.
Yeah, the mannequin and damage too will make you say things that your mama will slap you for at 2 in the morning. Oh yeah.
Okay, we have a question. Do you ever do EVP sessions?
The paranormal groups do. We don't. And if anybody that didn't list last week, we do allow paranormal groups to come on and do searches. That's a rental function we do. There is a fee attached with that. But we're happy to have paranormal groups come to the ship. And Fred and Gary and Cecil have all been ones to go with the paranormal groups. The ship's dark, and if you want to go in the torpedoing area, there's an extra fee for that one.
Okay.
But
We have a question.
we've never had anybody be disappointed, any of the paranormal groups.
We have a more general question about the ship. How long has it been a museum?
Since the ship arrived in October of 1961, it opened a couple weeks later, and it was dedicated in April of 1962. So let's see, this coming fall, it'll be 60 years.
Oh,
Well, no, not this fall, but next 2021, October of 2021. So it's actually, this month is 59 years. That's what it is. It's been 59 years here in Wilmington.
We have
Somebody asked
a
about-
question about, I guess this is more general one. for all of you, have you ever experienced any incidents while up on the deck?
Main deck, no, but up on
Mike
the
did.
O2,
Mike Russer,
Yeah.
his stories about the figure outside the executive officer's office is the main deck.
yeah. I had a couple incidents where basically you feel somebody looking at you through a porthole outside of the 20mm armory, but that's on the O2 level. That's the closest I've gotten.
On the 0403, I've experienced the feeling of someone directly behind me coming down a ladder from the navigation bridge to the signal bridge. Threatening, just, hey, I'm here still.
Hey, the questions are coming in thick and fast here. Do you have any unusual photographs that people have taken touring the ship?
Sometimes people occasionally send stuff, but sometimes they take it through plexiglass, so you can't tell if it's just a plexiglass reflection. So I don't know if you all have seen something that I haven't. I haven't seen anything that convincing yet.
Okay. Has anyone ever felt any very evil presence?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I
Yes.
haven't. Please, I don't want to feel one.
Oh, yeah. That's the one I was talking about a while ago. It's very, very rare, but occasionally, usually it's after 11 or 12 o'clock if you're making noise around the sick bay. You get the worst feeling you've ever felt in your life. Nick and I were talking about that earlier, that you can't describe it to somebody, man. How would you describe it?
It's like everything shuts down on your body.
Yeah, it's just, you gotta go.
It's just time to leave.
Yeah.
Regarding the sick bay,
Okay. So we have two more general questions about the ship itself. Is it still operational, and when was it decommissioned?
Decommissioned. So she was decommissioned June of 1947. So she served during the war. Then she helped train midshipmen from the Naval Academy for a couple summers. Decommissioned in June of 47. And there was somebody used to work here, and he said, "Give enough time, money, and bourbon, anything's possible." The ship, there are no active battleships, no more active battleships at all. They're just, so when we were decommissioned in 47, we had been the very first battleship built for World War II. Well, it wasn't built for the war, but it was the first of the new fast battleships. The 2 North Carolinas and the 4 South Dakotas. And so then there were the 4 Iowa classes. And battleships by the end of the war considered somewhat outdated, almost outmoded. And after that, every time they needed a battleship, they just used the 4 Iowa class. They didn't even use the North Carolinas and the South Dakota classes anymore. And so,
Okay.
We kind of went out of fashion when we were decommissioned in 47, and they never brought us back. And it would be so expensive. We're in like 25 feet of mud right now. And we're now surrounded by a huge, giant steel cofferdam. So we're not going anywhere. So they're not cranking us up.
Oh, we got a big gun. We can move it.
But thank you for that question.
Yeah, when was the first paranormal experience on the ship reported? Was it pre or post museum?
I can't address before the museum, but I do know that Danny, who wrote the ghost book, when he was hired to be the night watchman, his predecessor talked about all of his experiences. So I've been here 30 years, and Danny was here before me, and whoever was there before him was already experiencing this. So who knows how long these experiences have been going on. And I imagine they just came with the ship, that whatever that energy is that's left in the ship, that's causing this stuff. It's obviously been here since, the ship was decommissioned.
Here's an interesting one. Do you still have the alligator?
We have alligators.
Yeah.
Now, Charlie, I haven't seen Big Charlie, and it used to be every time they would have a really big alligator, they just would call him Charlie. We now have this cofferdam, which is making it harder, I'm sure, for any alligators. But we do still have alligators. I saw one a few weeks ago.
Somebody was
What
asking
happened to her sister ship, the Washington?
Scrapped. which was really sad because Bremerton, Washington was right at Seattle, was the battleship, kind of the battleship port during World War II, and it would have been lovely if they had saved her, but they didn't save her, so.
We have a few more questions. Do any of the radars or radio transmitters still function? And do those stay on, or do you keep them off?
The radios, yes. There's some radios that they've got working. We have a local, the Azalea Coast Radio Club, and so they've gotten some of the original equipment working. What was really cool is when they commissioned the submarine North Carolina, she came to, the submarine was actually in Wilmington to be commissioned, and her commanding officer and the battleship's executive director, who was a Navy captain, they talked to each other on the radios, the submarine radio and our radio, which was really cool. And the radio club does have events here. They have Pearl Harbor Remembered, which is always on December 7th, and they have an NCQSO thing, and let's see, and Museum Ships Weekend, which I think is June. The other event I think is February. So if you go to the Azalea Coast Radio Club, you might find some information, but they do have programs. And you can also, if you're a ham operator, you can come here and operate, but that'll be post-COVID. We're not doing that right now.
Another ship service question: was the ship this clean and well kept at all times while in service, or did it have to be brought back to ship shape?
Well, they did have over 2,000 men cleaning it all the time, but our volunteers right now are incredible, and the ship looks the best I've ever seen it, and I've been here 30 years, and it's because we have this group that comes on Wednesdays and they paint everything. We have Fred and Gary who polish everything. Cecil keeps restoring spaces right, left, and sideways. We have a wonderful cleaning crew that Nick used to be the head of, and this is all pretty recent. We have, I think, 180 something volunteers, and we have Mike Russer and the Living History crew, and they were one of the groups that early on they were restoring spaces and furnishing spaces. So a lot of our furnishings are original to the ship, but we also have people like the Living History crew and Cecil and others that also help purchase original things and put them in there on display as well. So the ship does look fantastic, and it's really, I think, thanks to the volunteers.
Two more questions for you. How much did it cost to bring the ship back to North Carolina?
I think I believe they collected about $330,000 at the time. So she was in Bayonne, New Jersey, which is kind of you can look over and see the Statue of Liberty. So they towed her, because she's not under her own power, they towed her down all the way from Bayonne, New Jersey to here. And I can't remember now, I think we have, I want to guess about 90 acres of land. So anyway, we have the land here, and they towed it here. And then, so yeah, I believe it's at $330,000 to sort of get things started.
Okay. How many volunteers work on the ship now? You've talked about what wonderful work they do.
I think I have 180 something names, but any given month, it's usually between 85 and 95 volunteers per month working on the ship. And we even have one that is 95. Lewis is either 94 or 95, and he was a World War II, he still is. He was a World War II Marine.
Oh, wow.
And he's one of our volunteers. So I think he's admittedly our oldest volunteer. We do have a lot. He's very cool. And he still chases women. He just doesn't catch them.
Yeah, he still chases women. He just doesn't want to catch them. He earned 4 battle scars. I got to give him that. He was Guam, Saipan, can't remember where else. He was
Iwo Jima, Bougainville.
So.
Stacy, do you want to take over?
Yes. I just want to say thank you all so much for taking your time out and sharing your stories with us. And thank you so much for all of your wonderful volunteering on the Battleship North Carolina. I grew up going out there every summer, so I appreciate you and all that you do for it. And thank you so much, Kim, for organizing this for us. And wow, I can't even imagine experiencing all the things that you guys have experienced on board. It's incredible.
Come hang out. You're gonna have your own stories to tell.
Yeah. There you go.
Absolutely.
Come on down.
Calm down.
Thank you guys, and thank you all for joining us this evening. We hope that
Thank you, everyone.
enjoyed the program, and definitely check out Battleship North Carolina. It is a one-of-a-kind experience during the day, much less at night with all
Yes, and the stuff happens during the day too. It's not like it's just at night.
No, it's all day, every day.
All right. Thank you all so much. Have a lovely
You're
evening,
welcome.
and we will see everybody later this month. Take care.
Thank you.